I want to again just thank everyone for coming, and I'm so glad that we're doing this in a private environment, right? So this is recorded, and it is something that we will share and post in our Insiders Club, which is our private community, and we might take like little clips of me speaking and share them in the public. But as far as like questions or input or comments that you guys have, you can feel free to put them into the chat, so that everybody here can see them. Or if you're feeling a little bit more shy, I know the topic of money can be really sensitive sometimes for people. If you want to, you can just chat your questions directly to Maura. And Maura, by all means, please do feel free to just jump in and let me know if there's questions, because I do want this to feel interactive. I was telling Maura before we got going here that I love that this is private. I've done a lot of live streams over the past year with the pandemic and COVID, and I wanted to just really try to reach people in a broader sense than I could with my one-to-one sessions. So I was doing a lot of public live streams, which has its appeal. But I think the benefit, for me to these private, intimate ones where it's only specifically for people that have registered, it's not streaming out to the public, is that it is a little bit more intimate. And, personally, I see a lot of value in that for myself. I know already I feel a little bit more open and free than I would if, we were just going live online, 100% to the public. So thank you for joining me in this, more private space than what we've had before. So to kick things off, I wanted to just think about that topic of charging what you are worth. And we definitely got a very strong response when we put this topic out there. We got a lot of signups, a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of interest. And I wasn't surprised, because I know that money is obviously such an important topic, right? We don't want to seem like we're greedy or like we're money obsessed. But on the other hand, of course, money is oftentimes the ticket, or it literally buys the ticket to do the things that we want to do in life, whether that be own a home or provide for our children or get advanced education, or travel, all the things, maybe take good care of ourselves, get massages, see a nutritionist, right? All those things that we want to do, that we enjoy doing, but they do have a price tag, right? And so that naturally then traces back to ourselves and what we're thinking about when it comes to charging what we're worth. And I know that there's kind of two camps for that, I'm guessing, for those of you who are in attendance, which would be either those of you who work for somebody else, and the conversation around charging what you're worth might have to do with asking for a raise, or looking at your compensation structure, your bonuses, all of that kind of stuff. And then there's also those of you that are working for yourselves, right? And maybe you have a client base, or you're trying to get a client base, and it can be a little bit intimidating to figure that process out of how to charge what you're worth. And then I guess there could also be a third category out there, right? Which is those of you who are maybe doing both. Maybe you work for somebody else and you're trying to get your own thing going on the side. So, whatever camp you're in, I want you to know you're welcome here. I would love to know, though, if you guys don't mind sharing in the chat, you can drop a comment that, that we can all see, or you can drop a comment just to Maura, and Maura can relay to me, like what people are saying as far as if you're in that camp of working for somebody else, working for yourself, or some kind of a combination. So I can start to understand what it means to you personally when you start thinking about charging what you're worth. Now, the thing also, of course, when we're charging what we're worth, right, is that there's a lot of overlap. First year of private practice. Awesome, Elizabeth. So happy to hear that. I know that first year of private practice can be a hard one. It's been, I don't know, maybe 10 years now at this point, since my very first year of private practice. But I remember that wasn't an easy time. And I see we've got another person there that's also working in private practice. So for those of you who are therapists, Maura can also share with you all, I have a program specifically for therapists. But I'm glad to know that the therapists are representing here. So when we think about charging what we're worth, I think it naturally is going to connect back into the topic of self-worth, right? So you're literally charging for yourself. And so the way that you have emotions around this, um, yourself and charging for yourself, naturally, I think the topic of self-esteem or, general feelings about money and what it means to charge people can become activated. So if anybody wouldn't mind sharing again, either in the group chat or to Maura, what are some of the first things that come to mind for you when you think about charging, period? We don't even have to say charging what you're worth. We can say that, charging what you're worth, or for some people, it's just charging it all, or, asking for a raise, what are some of the first things that come to mind? It can be anything from, fear, to embarrassment. Some people will say guilt because they somehow feel like it's, wrong or inconsiderate, to charge, what you're worth or to raise your fees. Whereas I want you guys to walk away from this knowing that the opposite is true, right? When we don't feel direct and empowered to charge what we are worth, what often ends up happening is that we either become burnt out or resentful. I see a question, how much is too much? And I definitely want to get to that. But I do want to just start first with the backdrop that this conversation is happening on, those logistical questions, like how much is too much, that's going to be happening on the backdrop of your personal feelings around the topic of charging, right? Whether it be charging at all or charging what you're worth or asking for a raise. So I'm just curious, if anybody can put some words on that. And I know we've got some therapists in the office in the room here, which is great. So I trust therapists are usually pretty good at supplying some good feelings words, right? So, I mean, many people say that they get small, that they get intimidated, that they're afraid that this conversation about their fees is going to invite scrutiny and maybe cause the client or the boss to start giving you some feedback about why maybe they don't feel that you're ready for that pay raise. And that can be a hard conversation for some people to have. So Maura, are people chatting with you anything, privately around what comes to mind when they think about charging or raising their fees or having conversations about compensation?
Yeah, so I've got some few here that I think a lot, they're echoing what you've said. I've got some shame. I have guilt around conversations about money. Someone just put in the group chat as well. Comparison, anxiety was something that was also a private message to me as well.
Mm-hmm. So comparison and anxiety, right? So in case anyone doesn't know, I literally wrote the book on anxiety, which is Nervous Energy, Harness the Power of Your Anxiety. And the major message of that book is that there's a healthy function of anxiety, which is to stimulate preparation behaviors, right? So when I would actually, rather than discouraging you from comparing yourself to others or trying to get rid of that anxiety, I would encourage us to embrace those. Those are actually healthy, logical components of a conversation around charging what you're worth. If you think about it, say from the opposite direction, if you were the customer, wouldn't you absolutely feel entitled to comparison shop, right? To be able to say, well, shouldn't I be comparing like this person against other people and, thinking about, where it makes sense for me to invest my money, right? So instead of, kind of thinking like, oh, well, we don't want to compare ourselves to others, I would actually say, frankly, in the business world, we do. It's a very fair question, I think, for consumers to be, bringing up the subject of comparison. I think we should welcome that conversation. I think we should normalize that conversation, right? So, for example, with my office, my fees have always been a little higher than the competition's, right? At this point now, my personal fees are, rather rather off the charts in terms of even, competition. But the fees that I charge for the associates that work underneath me, those are more, competitive in the world of, what therapy and coaching sessions cost, but they're still on the higher side, right? And I welcome that conversation of a comparison. And I would encourage everyone here to do the same. And with that anxiety around it, again, the healthy function of the anxiety being to stimulate preparation behaviors, to prepare you for healthy conversations about those comparisons, right? So on my website, it will say things like the Carmichael difference, right? It's Carmichael psychology. And it will list right there. It will be like, you know what? Our office offers 7 days a week live telephone reception. Our office will file the insurance benefits for you. And again, we're totally out of network with insurance, but we help people to get their insurance benefits because we know that it makes life easier for them and it makes the cash flow situation work better for them. So we think ahead, and in terms of empathy, we welcome conversations. We assume that people will absolutely want to compare what we're offering with what other people are offering. And we're eager to prove our value, right? So if for anyone who, and of course, we're damn good therapists too, but we recognize then that when we're offering a business service, it's not just therapy in a vacuum. It's also, therapy in a private practice. It's a business that people are coming to pay for. And there's an element of convenience to it. There's an element of customer service to it, making appointments, changing appointments, the logistics of the appointments. All of that is also, part of the transaction. And to be in denial of that, I think is counterproductive, both for you as well as for the client. It's almost like you're invalidating a part of that client's actual reality, that these are things that the clients have to deal with. So, whether you're a therapist in private practice or, whether you're a personal chef trying to, start up a side hustle as a personal chef, or, whether you work for somebody else, and you're an executive assistant and you're thinking about asking for a raise, for example, I would absolutely encourage you to think about that subject of comparison and to think about what you specifically offer that does stand out, right? And then make a good list of it. Again, remembering the healthy function of anxiety is to stimulate preparation behaviors, and definitely making a list of those points of what you have to offer is important. Also, when it comes to anxiety, one of the things that can help a lot is familiarity and role plays, right? So I would absolutely encourage you to role play the conversations where, either it's going to be that a client's going to be saying, can you tell me about your fees? And I know that question strikes fear in the hearts of a lot of therapists, again, or whether it be, personal trainers or, all kinds of other people that are independent service providers. Or if you're somebody who's, going to be asking for a raise at a larger corporation, and you're thinking about when and where and how you are going to make that ask. Personally, I think a good time to do it is at your annual performance review. They're actually usually happening twice now at most corporations. Those are a perfect time to, bring up that you want to discuss your compensation. So, thinking about where and when and how in advance, and then role playing the conversation a few times can be helpful. Now, when I said what comes to mind, I know again also that can trigger other feelings for people that they may not even quite know exactly how to source or how to understand. So I would encourage you to think about, what I call an experience inventory. What are some of your earliest memories about money and about charging, right? Was it learning about your parents and, how they earned money? Or, have you had the experience of asking for a raise before and having it not go very well?